Project Sapient is a podcast meant to engage our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement and military communities in conversations that we all know we need to have. All opinions you'll hear are our own, are protected by our First Amendment of the United States Constitution, and in no way reflect or are meant to reflect the opinion of any specific agency, officer, or service member. Some opinions may be controversial. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy. Caught you, motherfucker! Caught you drinking!
Cinco de Mayo, buddy!
It is Cinco de Mayo!
Yeah, it is!
You know what? Every day is Cinco de Mayo with you. What are you drinking?
Hey, dude, I'm drinking Terramana Tequila by Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
That's
bub.
The Rock!
Dude, it's a fucking delicious tequila.
That looks good.
Oh, dude, it's delicious.
You know what fucking sucks, you guys? I can't drink any of it because I'm going on shift in a couple hours. Asshole. Guys, Project Sapient, we want to thank our supporters, Havoc Journal, Gym Junkies, Vector Shields, Wellness for Warriors, Live Boston, Eagle Eye Firearms, Mass, OD Kit, and GunTrack.app. Please get on our YouTube and subscribe. YouTube is giving us shit because we're involved with law enforcement. Get on there and subscribe just to give it to them, all right?
Yeah, big time.
So, we have a really cool episode this week. Who do we got?
Yeah, we got a good friend of ours.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, retired law enforcement, Lieutenant Fred Leland. I've been in his classes several times over the past decade, and he's been teaching since the Civil War era. So it's
he's on mute, so he can't even say anything to you, right?
Oh, no, take him off me because he got to defend himself. Hey, Freddie.
Fred, are you there?
I'm here.
Do you want me to smack him with the bottle or what?
Yeah. He's close. He's close. He's only 100. He's not 100. I was born in 1962, but hey, what the hell? 1862. What the hell?
He's gonna go back to your academy days and change your fucking scores.
I know, exactly.
Oh,
you shouldn't be a cop.
Fred, thank you, brother. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. You had done one of our first shows with us. And
yeah, love being on. Thank you.
We had no idea what the hell we were doing. We still kind of don't right now.
But we're growing. We're like getting from adolescent to adults.
Yeah, and Ayman's getting fucking half in the bag too.
Well,
so
hey, tequila, bub.
He's right.
I'm not drinking anything but soda.
I said, what have I got myself into here?
Oh yeah.
Hey. Welcome to the party, pal.
So let me get this show on the road. Let's get this under control because the bottle's already down to a third.
Let's go over our supporters.
We did our supporters already.
Never mind then. I'm all fucked up.
God. All right. So, Ayman.
Yes.
You falling asleep?
No. So, today's episode, I actually wanted to talk OODA Loop. Because that's one thing that, Freddie, in all your classes that I've ever been to, you've always talked about OODA Loop.
And I'm wearing my OODA Loop shirt.
And he is wearing, actually, Freddie, you don't see it, but you'll see it on the YouTube. Yep. He's wearing his OODA Loop shirt.
It's a Fruit Loop shirt.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. It better not be like black. Mine's black and white, and I'm wearing mine right now, too. So,
are you really?
Yeah, honest to God. This is frightening me now.
No. Mine's red, and it's like a satire shirt.
Yours looks like the Fruit Loop shirt.
Yes.
I've seen those.
You've seen it. I was wearing it on one of the episodes.
Yep.
So
yes, I've seen it before. That's a nice shirt. I actually like that.
So I decided, I was talking to Pete, and I said, I did a post on Facebook and Instagram, on our Facebook and Instagram page about OODA Loop, and Freddie, you chimed right in right away, and you're like, you're talking my language, dude.
Yep.
And I said, you know what? Let's get you on the show, and let's get talking OODA Loop.
So the one thing I want to do first is I want to read the OODA Loop, or do you want to read it, Ayman?
No, go ahead. You got it up on the screen right
now. So OODA Loop, we put it up on the screen. I might have to get closer because I'm getting old. So OODA Loop, identified and developed by USAF Colonel Boyd. The OODA Loop is the process your brain goes through in any situation involving a threat. The OODA Loop is a constant conflict with the threats. Tactical objective is to throw the threat's OODA Loop off while maintaining yours and the advantage. Observe. Look at the situation and form theories about the problem. Gather as much information about the situation as possible to make the plan of action. Orient. Gather data and information. Is it data or data?
Data.
I'm going to call it data. And information to substantiate theories. Set yourself in them the best possible position to handle the situation. Decide. Develop solutions to address the problem. What plan is best for the situation? Act. Implement and evaluate solutions, following through with your plan. So
OODA Loop.
OODA Loop.
That's basically the acronym OODA. That's the acronym right there. So Freddie, let's talk OODA Loop. What's I know you've talked about it for years. So wherever you want to start off, bud, just we'll get going.
All right, sounds good. Boyd was. You'll hear me use the term the Boyd cycle, which is it's also known as. All right, the OODA Loop is also known as the Boyd cycle. So if you hear me interchange it, or you hear me use decision-making cycle, learning cycle, it's been called multiple things.
We like OODA Loop.
But it's about, OODA Loop's great. But the thing about the OODA Loop is it's much more than a loop. The loop was, matter of fact, the guys that work with Boyd, like Chet Richards and Chuck Spinney and these other guys that used to work and help him with all he's famously known in law enforcement for the OODA Loop, but he's done so much more, Boyd. Colonel John Boyd. The essence of winning or losing, patterns of conflict, organic design for command and control, which is leadership or the type of leadership you need to influence the OODA Loop in a fluid way, so that goes right down to the frontline level. All those things. So he's done a ton of work. The conceptual spiral. Destruction and creation, all kinds of stuff that Boyd worked on for 50 years, all in an effort to understand how we process info, how we learn, and how we decide, which is what the OODA Loop is all about. Okay. And in our job, I'm actually out this week. I'm out teaching a frontline leadership class, which we got 27 sergeants in class. Most of them have been on the job.
And you're teaching them all?
Yeah, me and retired Chief Dick Wells from Milton.
Okay.
We're teaching them. And bottom line is, it's all scenario-based work. We're trying to teach, instead of telling cops, what to think and do, and giving them a school solution, we're trying to teach them how to think and do instead. All right? So that they actually have to run through scenarios. And when they run through these scenarios, they're processing information via the OODA Loop, via their five senses. And it's all centered around trying to get the decision making, which is really what the OODA Loop's all about, is trying to fine tune our decision making. And in doing that, we have to, if we're interacting, the strategic game of interaction was another thing Boyd wrote about and briefed on. When we're in that interaction with an adversary in a conflict or a violent situation, we have to know how to influence the Boyd cycle, the OODA Loop, all right, not only in the physical realm by, how we maneuver, how we handle ourselves physically or whatever it takes and use of force, but we have to try to understand to have an effective, a real effective OODA Loop. You have to be able to influence the moral and the mental components of the games. Boyd used to say that conflict unfolds in three dimensions: the moral, the mental, and the physical. And if we neglect any of that, then we get problems.
Can you touch on that a little bit, Fred?
Yeah. The physical is what we're used to seeing in police work. We teach you how to shoot.
The only reason I'm asking you to do this, and I cut you up. The only reason I'm asking you to do this is because we do have people that aren't police officers, even some that are and that aren't aware of this. We want to get it as plain text out there as possible. You know what I mean?
Yes, I got it.
So go on. I'm sorry.
So in the police world, we often train in the physical realm. If strength versus strength, attrition based, right? In other words, you come at me, I come at you, I got to move, counter move. You punch me, I block the punch, right? Whatever it is in a fight, we think of the physical. So we train cops mostly in the physical realm, how to shoot, how to handcuff, how to defend themselves with their hands, all these types of things, and that's mainly what we focus on. So usually, what happens in our world, we see that unroll or unfold in the real world, and it's in a physical altercation, which is ugly and nasty, despite knowing it has to be done.
Right.
the mental game is how do we influence people's decisions? How do I get inside their head? Right? I use an example. I use a lot of examples, but one I really like using is, let's look at the police response to, like, say, a domestic violence call.
Okay.
Right? Thinking of it physically, the cop puts his foot to the floor and his gas pedal, turns his blue lights on, and goes, hi, diddle, diddle, straight up the middle, the devil be damned, to the front door of the house.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens every time I turn my lights on. Okay.
Yeah, it's what goes down.
Yeah.
And then he gets, as soon as he pulls up in front of the house with his lights on, his whole advantage
is gone.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. It's gone because now the guy, you don't even know where the first people are in this house, and he already knows you're there and sees you. So you've given the physical realm is, I'm there quick, I'm ready. Here I am with the police.
Right.
Right. I'm at the door, and now if he complies and uses moral authority, okay, everything turns out fine. But if it turns out to be a guy who doesn't want to comply, then things get ugly. Now, let's change it. Instead of doing high diddle diddle straight up the middle, the cop actually says to himself, "Oh, this is domestic at 123 Main Street. You know what? I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna kill my lights about a half a mile out. I'm gonna pull over probably a couple 100 yards, 100, 200 yards, using the environment to my advantage."
Yep.
Now what happens to show the mental side of the game? Now we've moved into the mental. Now the guy's sitting there, he's thinking, "Did you call the police or not? They're not here yet." Right? He's talking to his partner. It confuses him. It slows him down. While the police officer's walking up out of the car, he can hear things he can't hear from the car. He's got the element of surprise now. So when he finally either decides to knock on a door or call the guy out, it creates these moments where we can gain an advantage, these windows of opportunity.
He has time to formulate the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
You got it.
I mean,
the officer does.
Yep. Yeah.
Go
ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Fred.
No, the officer has he's reshaping. He's shaping the conditions to his advantage by utilizing, get inside the head so that the guy's he's a little confused. What Boyd called you want to get inside the mind of an adversary and disrupt his OODA loop. The whole goal is to condense. The police want to condense theirs so it's smooth and fluid while we put friction into their decision-making process.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, Fred, I mean, I've used a couple examples where like with me, someone that sizes me up or blades off to me, right away, I call them out on it. I said, hey, don't size me up, or hey, I know what you're thinking, stop. And that psychological ambush, I call it, there gives them that moment of pause and gives me my quick second to formulate my plan of what I'm going to do next. So, yeah.
And that's all we're looking for.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for. And what do you call it? Psychological what?
Psychological ambush.
Psychological ambush. That's getting inside the mind of the adversary.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
It's the same thing. And that's the perfect way of putting it. Now, that's the mental. So we discussed the physical, which is the hand-to-hand and force-on-force. The mental, which is helping us manipulate time and effort and tempo. And then the moral component. Believe it or not, probably 98.5% of the people in the world, even the people who are so-called bad guys, criminals, have a conscience. They have a moral realm.
Yeah.
All right?
As much as we hate to admit it, yeah.
Right. As much as we hate to admit it, most of them have a moral component.
Right.
And if we can get to that, make them realize it, what Boyd used to call, if we can get them to come around to our way of thinking, and that doesn't mean the police way, that means the good society's way, that we happen to enforce those rules, the police.
Right.
If we can get them to come around to our way of thinking and win without fighting, that's the acme of skill, as Sun Tzu put it 2,500 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And if we can do that, then we win at that higher plane. So whenever the OODA loop really, in my mind, is how do the strategy, operations, and tactics that police utilize influence the moral, mental, and physical dimensions that conflict unfolds in? The more it influences them in a positive way, in other words, in coming around to thinking good, hey, I put myself in a bad situation, maybe I should give up, or look, that police officer looks like he can handle himself physically, the more chance we have of getting somebody to comply. All right? And you know what? While we're on that topic, before I scatter off, these are numbers. These aren't Freddie Leland's numbers. These are DOJ and other research numbers.
They're official.
98.6% of the time, for every contact that we make annually, tens of millions of them, all right, we make 98.6% of the time people comply with the police.
Right.
Because we influence it in a positive light with no force.
So we have a new campaign that's going out, Fred, and it's it's called Enough. It's called the Enough campaign.
I think I saw something you put out that said that.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a couple of video. Ayman just put his out. I'm putting one out next week.
Wow.
And in mine, I talked about. It's a short video. It's like a minute and a half, right? But we sit here and we say things about the police interaction, and there's close to 100 million of them a year. Okay, and you're saying 98.9% of them are dealt with without any kind of they're dealt with full compliance, right?
98.6, on average.
So the
give or take a fraction of a percentage each year.
Sure. So the other side of that is how many actually deal with violence, and it's 0.00001%.
Yeah,
we're talking 5 zeros.
Where we actually use deadly force.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
And then the ones that are questionable uses of force are another 0.00001% of those.
Yeah, it's so rare.
Yeah,
police use of force is so rare, and I know people listen and go, what? It is. Police use of force is so rare. You've got about as much chance of getting struck by lightning as you do being shot by a police.
Right.
That's the stats.
Yeah.
That's not exaggeration, but the influence by the media and everything is big. So we can talk about that, because that influence is, that influence, you've got to remember now the moral component of the game too. I want you to think of this.
I was just going to say it builds into it.
Right, because we just described the us versus them, police versus the criminal. But wait a minute, we police a free society.
Yes.
So society has the say. All right? Society views what we do, right? And we want to influence them in a positive way.
Exactly.
Right? In the moral component. And that's all too often we talk about that, but we're not doing as much as we need to be doing to influence it.
Oh no, we need to do a lot more. I think again, like I've said before, Freddie, and I've said to Pete, and I said, one thing about law enforcement is we've been so insulated for decades.
We've been insulating ourselves.
We hurt ourselves from it. Yeah,
exactly. That hurt us more than help us. Mm-hmm. And I get insulating investigations. I get insulating certain aspects of what we do just for OPSEC purposes on whatever, but in terms of everyday interactions with the public, with the people we serve, we did a disservice by insulating ourselves. Just like I agree. One thing I read, I forget who wrote it, but the day of the mobile cruiser was the day when community policing kind of stopped, because now cops sit in their cruisers, roll up their windows, and don't want to talk to anybody.
Probably somebody like Herman Goldstein or
probably exactly.
Right, but those guys, and I agree with them, because once we did that, we took the street cops, we put them in cars, people stopped knowing they're cops.
Yep.
Right, and the interactions that every single cop can make to influence the public, because that piece of it is important to the Boyd cycle, because we can win the physical realm on the street and put the guy in cuffs, but now we're dealing with the aftermath. If it doesn't look justified, or it shocks the conscience of the public, or one of the things I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to this current situation with police use of force in the Ooda Loop is the moral component of the game, because in how it impacts the public, because we can win yet lose, right? We win the battle, lose the war. The public perception, lose the war,
right?
And all too often it's because of this lack of transparency that we've had. And you're right, there are some things we have to keep quiet. Investigations, you don't want to give information out on investigations that are crucial to the investigation or to a verdict, or to a jury. Or at least that's how it always was, right? And how it should be. But at the same time, the world's changed.
Well, that's what I was getting. That's what I was going to get into, Fred. Like, what is the OODA Loop and the Boyd cycle? Does it? And it was 50 years ago that it was started.
He started in the Korean War. He was a fighter pilot in Korea. Yeah.
So my question is: are we taking into account the moral aspect of the evolution of our society? Meaning, okay, we brought up the fact that we were taking cops off the street and putting them in cars. That was going on because of certain things, because of the way neighborhoods were growing and all that. Right?
Yeah.
Are we adjusting quick enough to how society is evolving now with social media, with the availability of media, right? Like we have shootings that happen and then 3 minutes later the body camera is out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What do we say with the OODA Loop and Boyd's cycle about the evolution of following in line with the evolution of society?
Well, I'll answer your first question. Do we move fast enough? No, we don't.
We're not.
Policing's very slow to move.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? We're very slow. Now, are we moving finally? Yeah. Right? Let me give you a quote from Boyd, what he said, and it fits whether we're talking the physical, mental, or moral, right? And I love this. He says, in this quote, he says, we can't just look at our present experiences or use the same mental recipes over and over again. Now, that can be for how we handle calls, how we respond to an active shooter, how we give out information, right? Yep. And then he goes on to say, we've got to look at other disciplines and activities and relate or connect them to what we know from our experience in the strategic world we live in. Now, we're not very good at that in policing. We're good at talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're good at putting it in a policy.
Yeah.
Or a procedure.
That's exactly where I wanted to get to.
The shelf.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. But we're not good at training, developing, and implementing these ideas. In my experience, all right, and I think that's very important for us to recognize, because what's happened now is when I got on this job now, I hate to say it, but getting 37 years ago, right? There were no cameras, no video cameras around, nothing. If a police officer had a fight, a use of force incident with somebody in the parking lot, I just think a parking lot of a bar, right? Because the things I've been in, somebody will come up to you and say, hey, we heard you cops had a fight with so-and-so down at such and such, right? Did you arrest them? Oh yeah, we arrested them. And that was the end of it. Nobody ever saw a video or a picture.
And it was done.
Right? Then it was over with. People talked about it. Somebody complained, and it was that. Now, we have Rodney King, right? And that wasn't a cell phone. That was a big box, 25-pound VHS video camera that somebody had, right? And that came out, and that stirred up controversy in policing because of that ugliness of that whole case. Right now, we've evolved. So I could actually right now take a pouty lipped snapshot. What do you call that?
Selfie.
Selfie.
You need to send me one. I'm not going to post it. I swear. Please.
Right? We're dead serious. I could take a picture right now and send it to you. You have it right now before I finish the set.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And same with video. So now it's out there all the time. Now this is my. I guess we can use theories, right? My theory is the law, like Graham versus Connor, that governs police use of force, and that recognizes the speed, the ambiguity, the rapid way things unfold, the danger.
Yeah.
And even talks about you can't analyze the case with 20/20 hindsight. You have to analyze it through the eyes of the reasonable police officer.
Yep.
That's still there, and it means the same. The reasonable police officer. Now, this is what I'm wondering. What's changed because of social media and technology? And maybe we're getting off where you wanted to go, but it fits because all these aspects come into play. What role does social media play in? It doesn't change Graham versus Connor, but it does change what the public views is reasonable.
It changes what the public thinks Graham versus Connor is.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It changes it because now they see the fight and they're horrified by it because you're going to remember we're in a generation now where people don't play sports. Well, they do, but they're not as rough. There's
softer.
No fight.
Softer.
Nobody's been hit.
Yeah.
We're softer.
Yeah.
So they see a fight. They see a fight and they go, "What the hell is that? That shouldn't be happening."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Little do
exactly.
they know that this stuff's been happening at the same rate we're talking. This has been my career. These percentages you're throwing out, it's been that way pretty much throughout my career.
Well, this is my issue with everything going on with this, right? Is that we as a people have not evolved.
No.
Right? For thousands of years. We've been the same. We've been throwing rocks at each other for a million years, right? For 200,000 years. So when you see, like a lot of times with policing, when videos were starting to come out and you would see a cop putting his hands on somebody, the cops would know why he was putting the hands on them. People would be horrified by it.
Well, it's because people that have never experienced an actual fight.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to say is we're slow to evolve as a police force. Yeah. But I think we really need to kick it up a notch because the way technology is advancing, we're going to be far behind. We're behind now. Yeah. We're far behind. And things like Graham versus Connor, who is a foundation of law enforcement, is going to be left in the dust.
Yeah. Yes, they talk about a national standard. That's your standard. That's the national standard for use of force right there.
Right.
And you're right. And that's where we're going with this. The police, we have to be more agile. We got to get out in front of this stuff because the longer we allow these videos to sit. Now, there's controversy with this. There's some experts who say we shouldn't be releasing them as quick. Well, you got to weigh out. You got to do some serious thinking about in trying to understand the different dynamics here than it was 30 years ago. Well, we could say it's under investigation. Now we got to go, wait a minute. We got people sending this stuff out. They're burning cities down.
Exactly.
Police can't respond like they used to unless it's extreme. And even in extreme cases, in a lot of places, they're not responding. So we got to get these things out to try to prevent these types of riots. Protesting is one thing, rioting is another.
Sure.
But when they're going to riot and destroy property, they've gone over the line. It should not be condoned by anybody.
Well, 98% of everything that's gone on hasn't been a protest. It's been a riot.
Yeah.
Right. Most of it's been rioting. Right. And it's obvious. But now we got that other component of the game, the political aspect of the game, which could take us for about a 4-hour conversation.
Oh yeah.
Right. But so we do have to get it out. We got to do it right. We don't want to just put it out. We make sure we put it out with. I've seen some good ones where they put them out with like a. I'm not a techno guy, but they put a light on the gun so you can see it clear. You know what I'm saying? It shows everything with some type of public service announcement with it. A news person, PIO, right? Public information officer giving information on, so that it's not just released. It's released with some background and some explanation
in a controlled manner.
Right. So we need to, maybe we got to really make sure we have people on board nowadays that are capable of doing that, like as fast as they can get it out there. You know, in like you said, in a manner that's fair, impartial, and is out to live with justice, right?
Well,
all about.
At the end of the day, right, we got to call a spade a spade. And aside from major investigatory things where if you give out the info and it'll ruin the investigation, like what Ayman was talking about, the OPSEC aspect of it, we kind of owe it to the public because we work for the public. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where we have to be transparent. Like I'm thinking, I'm sitting here listening to you speak, right? And I'm like, man, Fred's a genius and he knows everything he's talking about. And the OODA Loop, and I'm looking at the thing that I have up on the screen, and you'll see it when the video comes out, and it's observe, orient, decide, and act, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We as a police department are observing, we're not orienting, we're not deciding, and we're not acting.
You know what we call that?
Deer in headlights?
What we call that? The status quo.
Yes, exactly.
Tell me that doesn't sound familiar. The status quo.
Exactly.
If we're right, and when you go through the process of the OODA Loop, when you observe, there's a ton of things going on, right? You got outside information, unfolding circumstances, things that happen right now, unfolding interaction with the environment, depending on where you are. You got your rational brain processing information critically, and more in a violent encounter, you got your implicit brain, right? Your intuition working, right? Yeah, and that all this stuff is based on the orient. So the observations. Boyd used the term observation, but he includes all our senses under observation, not just what we see, but what we hear, smell, taste, and feel.
Well, yeah, the primal instinct.
All that stuff is included.
Yep.
Right. Then we orient. our orientation is made up of all our experiences, right? Mine, we're cops. We probably got similar ones, but then again, we may have seen different things. Some of us might have grown up in tough neighborhoods. Some of us might have gone off to war, been in the military. Some of us might have been involved in a shooting or a use of force case, different things. So we do have differences in our experiences, but we're cops. We've been trained. We've been developed into certain ways. So we have a lot of things in common as well.
Right.
But what also shapes it, so our orientation, all our experience from birth till present, from the time we pop out of the womb till right now having this discussion, shapes the way we view the world. That's orientation.
And it's constantly evolving.
Yeah. Always.
And it's constantly evolving. Everything we do. Like, I'm here teaching a class. I learn every time I teach a class from, I'm teaching it, but I'm learning it's myself.
It's a sign of a good teacher.
Right? In the guys, the same way. We feed off of one another. All our cultural traditions, our heritage, how we previous experience we've had, which I touched on, any new information. See, the orientation is what we call pattern recognition. We recognize patterns based on our lives, and that's how we see the world. Now, the key to have a good observation, orientation, decision, and action cycle is to recognize that, but then also go, oh, wait a minute, that's previous. What's this new information? What's this telling me? Right? So now we recognize not only patterns, but anomalies. That's what makes us good at this.
I like that a lot. I really like that. I love the way you just put that.
Yeah, that's what makes us good. If I just get stuck in what I've always done and I see guy across the street with a hoodie, oh, the last one I saw like that's a bad guy.
He's a criminal.
He's going to be a bad guy. Right. We're going to jump to conclusions. That's where our biases and stuff come in.
Yeah.
But if we have a growth, right, if we have a growth mindset, right, we see new info and we're looking at things and we recognize, wait a minute, all right, yeah. You know, he's got the hoodie, but he's not doing anything wrong, right? Well, his body language isn't right.
He's got the hoodie and it's grandpa walking his dog.
Exactly. So this is where
exactly
the key to it is analysis and synthesis, right? We look at it and we go, okay, the last guy I had with a hoodie he was a bad guy because of this, and this is what I remember. But this guy, what's different here? Wait a minute. These things, he's the old guy. He's walking the dog. It's totally different. I know we're being extreme, but we're trying to make the point.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you analyze it, and then you take everything you know in those patterns from your experience. I don't want to get too overly crazy here, but you take all those patterns, those experiences, and now you go, oh, synthesis. Let me put it back together. Wait a minute. Yeah, hoodie. Yeah, he's in the same neighborhood. Yeah. It made me nervous for a second, but wait a minute. He's the old guy walking his dog, therefore, okay, he's not a bad guy.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But we don't spend time developing that at least.
So real quick, Fred. So it's funny talking OODA Loop, right? And with my unit that I work in, that I run, the way we are, a lot of our stuff comes straight from problem-oriented policing. Okay. And Herman Goldstein came up with the SARA model, which is pretty much pretty much OODA Loop, right?
I never want to hear the word SARA again.
And it's scanning, and well, that's because he was studying for the sergeant's exam, and that's all they talk about. But but so scanning, analysis, response, and assessment. So it's like pretty much similar to OODA. Right, to the OODA Loop. And that's one thing, like in the unit, that we always obviously evolve with every situation, whatever we do, whoever we come across, because everybody's different that we deal with. And not one person has the same exact story over and over again. Everyone has a different story, and everyone needs to be, again, with our observations, we orient and we respond, and then we act, and we do what we got to do to make our, like you said, instead of controlling the chaos, we reshape the chaos.
That's we context.
Exactly.
Context is everything.
Exactly.
Situations matter. This moment matters. Not yesterday's moment. This moment.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And we forget that. That's what part of the problem is when we teach police. And I know there's exceptions to this rule, but I'm talking in general. In the vast majority of training, we tell cops what they're supposed to do on a call.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, no. I mean, that's when you get the newer guys with the deer in the headlights look like, all right, what am I supposed to do next?
We tell them what to do, and what happens is we do it so much, and that's rote, lecture, do this, do that, stand here, stand there. No, that doesn't look like a diamond formation. Move it over. Get right.
Yeah.
Right? We're yelling and screaming at guys that they're thinking inward all the time. What am I supposed to be doing instead of looking outward at the problem? So when they get
crap, I'm doing it wrong.
Right. And then we frame everything. Everything. It's a car stop.
Yeah.
It's a felony car stop. Or a high risk stop. It's a active shooter. It's a domestic violence call. It's a robbery, and that's fine, right? But what happens when you frame a bias, a big bias, is a framing bias, right?
Yeah.
When I tell you it's this, and I taught you to do that, when you get to that call, you're going to do what you were taught to do, right?
Exactly, and that whole saying that some cops say that drives me crazy. I'm sure it drives you crazy, Fred. Is that's the way it's always been done.
God, I hate that.
Yeah,
right.
It's status quo again. Here we go.
Exactly.
Status quo, right? It's the way it's always been done, and there's no adaptability.
Yep.
And we need to make sure we're training guys to be adaptable.
Fred, how many times in your career would you read an officer's report and you would see the key taglines, the in plain view?
Yeah. The usual.
You hear him laughing?
Yeah.
It was in plain view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times
they use it exactly what they were taught.
Yeah.
Now, this has been my passion for a long time, is to try to get us out of that mindset. We need to be developing, instead of school solutions to whatever the problem is, so that we lock people into doing it one way. Think about domestic violence call. I'm going to ask you a question. You give me the answer. You got a domestic violence call. You get to the house. You go inside. What's the first thing you do?
Separate the parties.
You get inside the. Separate the. It comes up. I don't care where I am, how many cops I'm talking to, what part of the country I'm. Separate. Yep. And then what happens when the guy in the house says, "No, I'm not separate. I'm not letting my wife tell you without me sitting here what went on. I'm staying." What happens?
The rolling begins. The rolling begins.
See? So it's no longer about the domestic. Is it?
No.
It's no longer about it. Now it's about the policeman and the guy who refuses to cooperate.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead of learning, if you were learning to reshape the call, you would say, "All right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you sit here, and I'm going to let you both sit in the same room, but one of you is going to talk at a time. As soon as both of you start talking, we'll separate."
Oh,
right. And then you work it in an effort to reshape the conditions.
Yeah,
instead of saying
reshape the chaos.
But how many administrations would see that and be like, "Oh, no, we're not doing that."
Yeah, this is part of our problems with policy.
Right.
See, policies, and I'm sure you heard this, are meant to be guidelines, not etched in stone dogma.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
They're meant to be guidelines. But the problem is, once we've written them down, all too often they become dogma.
Right? Oh yeah, they become the Ten Commandments, basically. That's all you know.
So you go in and you say, "Hey, I tried to separate them, boss, and they didn't separate, so I made them separate." Right? I arrested them. Whatever. Yeah. It becomes a whole different thing. So we have to. When we frame the problem and we've given you a solution before we've even gotten it, those are adaptive challenges. They're different than technical things. If I can have a school solution to tell me how to process a crime scene, for example, right? If nobody's there causing any problems. Right? You do these things, you get a nice chain of custody for court, and everything's
that's all
perfect if you
procedural.
follow the rules.
Yeah, that's all procedural. Yep.
But you go to a domestic or any of these where you get an adversarial conflict taking place, those are adaptive challenges. We don't know fully what we got. We don't know how we can speak to this guy, what's going to influence him in a positive way or a negative way. And you got all this stuff going on. So we have to figure that out. And that's where the strategic game of interaction comes into play, and the observation, orientation, decision, and action cycle come into play. Body language reading. This is how fine-tuned this is. We can go on for this for hours, guys. The OODA Loop. We can talk about it forever. But body language comes into play when I'm speaking to him. Does he look like he's maybe going to comply? All these signs showing he's going to comply, or is he showing contempt and he looks like he might fight? All these recognizing the signs and signals, if you will.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we do it all the time at calls. Like, when we test the person's compliance,
right?
Hey, can you sit down for a second for me? Let's talk about whatever. It's all tests. In my mind, that's the way I am. It's like, all right, to test compliance on this unruly subject, let me try this, let me try that, let me try this, let me try. So just so I know the level that I'm dealing with.
You're getting your intel.
Exactly, and that's the whole.
Did you get a chance to? you get a chance to look at that thing I sent you, what the OODA loops mean to the street cop?
Yes.
Yes. Did you see the initial scenario? That's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Is when this goes way back when I was really getting into this, trying to understand how the Boyd cycle can apply to what we do in policing. And when I looked at that thing, these guys get there at 3 a.m. They're dealing with the guy. They try to get him to go in. He goes in, but he comes back out. They talk to him again to tell him to go in. And then when they're speaking to one of the other parties, and then he comes back out again. Finally, they bring him into the station because they're going to PC him.
Yeah.
They're booking him. He's talking about cops beating him up and how he's nervous and afraid. And every report, it turned into a Donnybrook. If you read the whole thing, it turned into a full-blown 4 police officers on top of one. He tried to escape,
yeah.
right? 4 injured guys,
yep.
right? And every report in that, every report written on that said that he, up until the point they went to put him in the cell, he cooperated. Did he?
Yeah.
Did he cooperate?
No.
He didn't cooperate through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So this is where, and that was a simple example. Luckily, nobody got seriously hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a simple example of what you were just talking about, utilizing these tests of compliance.
Yeah.
Right. And if we utilize them, they have to mean something to us.
Exactly.
Right? What are we looking for?
Here's the thing.
If you're not,
everything that I do or Pete does out on the street or any other street cop that does these things, it's all strategic. It's all part of whatever end game we have going on that we are like, you know, again, it's one of those things subconsciously or consciously, we're thinking 3 steps ahead.
I have the end game.
You know, where the end game I have already is just how am I going to get there safely?
Right. Voluntary compliance would be the best thing.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
God, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, get them to comply.
That's what people don't realize is that when it's not voluntary compliance, there's so much more fucking paperwork.
Oh, my God.
I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all set.
Holy shit.
You know what? To fine-tune the OODA loop and to get into what we're talking about, if we, and there's studies on this, matter of fact, the Marine Corps did a small unit decision-making study with guys like Gary Klein, who's a big recognized prime decision-making guy, intuitive decision-making. He's written several books, Sources of Power, Intuition at Work, Street Lights and Shadows. He's written numerous papers, and he's still he helped develop the Marine Corps tactical decision-making, Wildfire, tactical decision-maker, so people out there can go, oh, Red Team does this guy? Oh, good. Because everybody loves the firemen.
Right.
Yeah.
Even I love firemen. Right?
Ah, Spockies.
So, yes, but anyway,
they make good food.
And here's what they came up with. And I was lucky enough and honored in 2017 to be asked to go down to Paris Island in January 2017, and then again in July 2017 to teach Marine Corps for a week, 5 days.
Wow.
To teach, 5 days each time, right? To teach Marine Corps DIs, PMIs, primary marksmanship instructors and tactical instructors, how to develop adaptability. All right. Because they wanted, believe it or not, even I was a Marine, but believe it or not, even the Marine Corps now wants to get their frontline people to make decisions.
Exactly.
When I went through Marine Corps, they want them to make it at that level because they recognize that's where you're going to get the fluid OODA loop. It's going to be more fluid. If I have to stop and go higher headquarters, hey, Sarge, hey, Lieutenant, hey, Chief, then the opportunities fleet. So,
well, that's the Army was the same way. The Army, back when I was in Iraq and everything, it really came down all the way down to the fire team, even to the private, where if we're, especially in urban combat, as well as I do, it's so fluid. You can't wait for higher headquarters to give you a go ahead.
No,
that decision needs to be made at the front line.
Hey, look what happened when they had. We just come up on the 10-year anniversary of Bin Laden being taken out, right? A couple days ago.
Yep.
Look what happened when they were in Tora Bora.
Yep.
They had them cornered in Tora Bora, and they had to call back to D.C. What the hell are they going to call back to D.C. for? To take the guy out I'm there to take out?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly.
To get him. So while they're waiting for orders to get okayed, he escapes.
Yep.
It's essentially,
right? So
I have a feeling this shit's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, here's where I was going to kind of fine-tune this for us so people listen and get where we're going with this. For police to become better. And it works in any field too, by the way.
Yep.
But we're talking policing. and I want young cops to get this too. And trainers, listen, if we stop telling cops what to do instead, and giving them school solutions, and instead teach them these core competencies of the sense making, the ability to size stuff up, right? Teach that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Develop that. Problem solving, right? The ability to evaluate and generate options on how to handle a problem. See, we don't have options. I got the sergeants in class here this week, 3 days, and they're going on the third day today. They're saying yesterday actually it started. They go, I never realized there were so many ways we could do this. And I'm right? Yeah. Because I'm teaching them through history. Newhall's a big one I use from 1970. 51-year-old case.
The U-Haul incident.
The Newhall incident, yeah. Newhall. It was 1970, Newhall, California. 4 cops were killed, and it happened at night, and it was on a known gun in the car because he brandished the gun at in a road rage type incident. Didn't fire it, but brandished it, pointed it. So they knew the gun was there. 4 cops were dead in 3 minutes and 54 seconds, I believe.
Wow.
Right?
There was something about the car too, right? That did they know something about the car, or they saw the car, or something like that?
They knew the car because what happened was the road rage. The guy was a Navy sailor. Kidwell was his name. He went for the real young listening here. They had to go find a pay phone. You can look it up on Google. Yeah, right.
Is that where you actually have to like put money in it? And
yeah. And they called the California Highway Patrol, gave the description, right, and then. These guys, highway patrol guys, found it, saw it, and then followed it. They pulled off the off ramp and into a truck stop, and it unfolded into a bad set of circumstances. Right, so we have to recognize that if we develop these sense making capabilities, these abilities to frame and solve problems, and then once we start to solve the problem, we recognize things have changed. We adapt, right? You guys still there?
Oh yeah. Well, no, we're here.
All right.
Just
you're
listening.
Holy shit! I wish I could listen that well.
But you're teaching us.
Yeah, but so if we could get that, and then once we frame and solve the problem, we have to be open minded because once we frame it, usually we're locked in because we've been taught a school solution. Do this. Yeah. Once we frame it, we want to make sure that it's what we think it is. So we need to be able to adapt if it's not. And you tell me if I'm wrong. Any cop out there, reach out and tell me if I'm wrong. Once we lock in on most cases and start the problem solving, taking the action, we hardly ever adapt.
Oh, God.
Keep going with what we started with.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because we've been taught one way. You know, in these things, guys come up with, you got let's say, high-risk stop, the V shape behind the car, right? If somebody says, hey, I'm going to go buy the car, I'm driving by it, right? Talk about OODA Loop again, right? If I sit behind it, right, they go, they're here for me. If I drive by the car, right, in this case, and go around it, now what did I just influence on the bad guys?
What do you mean?
What did I just influence in their way of thinking? If I drove by that car, in other words, I didn't have my blue lights and sirens.
He didn't see us.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't see us.
Yeah,
maybe they don't want us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That goes back to that little bit of trying to help reshape it. It gives me time to look like maybe, I don't know, look like I'm going for coffee or look like I'm checking.
It throws their OODA Loop off.
It throws their OODA Loop off, right? So we get used to doing that. If we start thinking that way. But when you do that with a group of veteran cops, they go, you can't do that. Nobody ever taught us that.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had that said to me. Veteran guys, right? And it's not their fault. It's because we've been taught. We've been taught do it this way.
I'm a firm believer in doing things differently as long as they're safe. Like it was one of the things where I would talk to Ayman about it, especially a lot in special ops, is there's no right way to fucking clear a room, right? There's 1,000 ways to do it.
Yeah.
And as long as you can articulate as to why you were doing it, as long as you don't sound like an idiot,
right?
Yeah.
What's your why? Why am I doing it? That's the big why. Why am I doing this? Why am I sticking in a? You know what? Go back to that car stuff. The way we learned it, that works great when it unfolds, just like we were trained to do it. If it's going as according to plan, right? That's fine. All right, then you can utilize it. If it's not, then you need to adapt and adjust.
Well,
now, this is where the last two pieces of this come into play. So we got sense making, problem solving, adaptability, and then we got metacognition, right?
Yep.
Using strategies. Think about how we think. That's how I put it, right? Thinking about how we think, thinking about how we train, thinking about how we develop, thinking about how we handle a certain call instead of just doing it ropely the same way every time.
Robotically.
When we think that way, that goes back to what you just said, right? If I can explain why I did it the way I did it and my rationale behind it, that's important.
Yep.
All right. And then what this helps us do is be able to focus our attention, which is the fifth core, is attention control, right? Or focus of effort, right? And my attention, the way we teach now with rote lecture and school solutions, most cops are thinking, they're not thinking about what's happening out there. What's he doing? They're thinking, okay, I got a active shooter. I got to go get him. Step one is enter. Step two is, they're thinking inward.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
They're thinking inward instead of looking outward at the problem.
Yeah.
And that works great on the assembly line. That works great on the technical problems, but it don't work very good.
Well, that's the thing.
Like
Like we said with adaptability, whatever. There's procedural stuff we have to do because those are rules by court, right? Chain of custody.
Yeah.
When we stumble on a crime scene, there's certain things we have to do. Yeah, that's fine to follow the steps, right? Step one, you do this. Step two, you do this. Step three. But when you have an unfolding situation that is again chaotic, you don't have time for this. All right, step one, I'm going to separate the party. Step two, I'm going to talk to each individual. Right. Step three, I'm going to find out who's the aggressor and make the arrest. And step four, I'm going to take him to book it. It doesn't work that way. Theory is different than practicality.
Right.
My mental, the way I look at things and the way I've taught people to look at things, and I always like to tell people to look this way, is instead of looking for your solution right away, because the first thing you want to do is solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
Stop looking for the solution. Work the problem.
Yeah.
Work the problem.
Work the problem. Stop looking for the solution.
Think about this, Pete. Guys, think about this. We're so excited about it. We develop solutions before we even know what the goddamn problem is.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
How does that work?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
Right? You can say, okay, I got an active shooter scenario. Okay, is there a difference between an active shooter who's 16 years old with a handgun and a guy who's a former military veteran, highly trained with a rifle in his hand? Do we handle it the same way, or do we handle it differently?
You're going to approach that a little differently, right?
Yeah.
If you know.
Long gun versus pistol, how we maneuver haul.
Right.
We got distance, right? That it becomes an issue. All these things come into play, but yet we just put out things like, real quick, in 1999, surround and wait for SWAT. That was a great best practice, right?
Columbine, yep.
Right. That was a great best practice. All of a sudden, the best practice was, oh shit, right? Then we went from that extreme. We wiped everything else out. We didn't give it any thought. We just jumped to let's go 4-man in the diamond, right? Then we said, well, wait a minute,
we don't need the 4-man.
We don't need the 4. Let's do 3, 2, and now let's do 1.
Yeah.
And you know what we do? Hey, every time we do it, we throw the other one out. Well, here's my philosophy.
Yeah, and every time when you're teaching the 4 and somebody asks, hey, can we do this with 3? They're like, absolutely not. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No.
And everybody flips.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe there's a time I'm going to enter solo. Maybe there's a time I'm going to need 4. Maybe there's a time I'll need 3, 2. Right?
Right.
And maybe if I have a situation where I have highly trained bad guys inside a school, multiple guys, high caliber weapons, maybe even explosives, maybe I'm going to have to wait for the right type of people to come to help us deal with it, right? And I ain't going to be able to enter because I got explosives or whatever.
Right.
And you know how it is with, I know the movies, every cop, Bruce Willis, Die Hard. I love the guy, right? Best Christmas movie. Hey, best Christmas movie ever made.
Absolutely.
I agree.
But that's the movies.
Right.
That's the movies. He knows how to undo explosives and everything else. Most cops, we don't, we have 5. I think we still only have 5 hazmat and explosive teams in the state, right? Of Massachusetts. What the hell, right?
Yeah. Right.
So what do we do if we got booby traps with explosives and stuff? So my whole point is, my whole point is we have to stop doing everything by rote memorization and school solutions. Start learning.
Yes.
And developing small team skills that take into account what I just talked about: sense making, problem solving, adaptability, metacognition, and attention control. Develop those skills so that when guys go, they can size things up. Now they can actually unfold.
It's what Ayman and I have been talking about since the inception of Project Sapient, right? Is to bringing a lot of the special forces and a lot of the special ops practices into standardized patrol.
Yeah.
No, we're not talking about the whole thing. We're not talking about everything. Bringing little key concepts.
Well, a small team maneuvers.
Small team maneuvers, exactly.
Small team mentality,
right.
And you as you know as well as I do, Fred, like, you're a beat officer, you respond to a call, it's going to be you and maybe one other cop that does, and that's, to me, that's small team maneuver.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
I got let me tell you guys a quick story.
Go ahead.
We were clearing a house. And I got behind someone, and I felt like I was in a stack.
Yeah.
And I pinched their shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
It was just pure muscle memory.
Yeah.
And it froze them.
Yeah.
And I laughed about it, but then I said to myself after, that could have been really fucking deadly.
Yeah.
Because my pinch threw them off.
Yeah.
Whereas opposed if I got behind you and pinched you, it would have been the go.
Yeah.
Right? It froze them. And I was like, fuck, that could have been like, that's when the bad guy starts shooting.
But again, it goes back to why isn't patrol
doing that,
learning that, not just learning, realizing that those are very, very important skills to have.
There's a couple things to think about with it. Team skills and working a SWAT team, obviously you're going to be at that higher level because you're working in a team concept all the time. What we got to do with street cops, because they're often working alone, right, is when they do have to work together, right, they have to learn to develop those skills that we're talking about, but they're going to be able to do them ad hoc, if you will, because and get into that right mindset, because they're not always working in that team concept.
No, here's my biggest problem with that, right? So you're working with patrol and you're going to do a room entry, right? And actually, me and Pete talked about one of his last room entries where he had a couple of junior guys with him, and he was concentrating so much on directing them, and I
showed it to you.
You showed it to me, and he was point. I said, I see what you were doing, but that at the same time in real life scenario was dangerous because his mind was more directing the two new guys behind him who did not know how to properly clear a room, and Pete was too busy directing them. That's why I said,
that's a big problem.
It is. Why can't we do that with patrol? Where we should. And we should, because me next to a patrol officer, if I'm going to do an entry, I don't know his movements. He doesn't know my movements. Us on SWAT, we know each other's movements because we train together all the time. Why isn't on the patrol division with Ooda Loop and everything? Why aren't we doing that with them?
Well, I tell you what, I got material for doing just that, right?
Yeah.
That I've had. If Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, this is where I got this information from one of their SWAT team commanders. They tweaked everything. I was telling what I was trying to do. This is going back several years now, almost 8-9 years ago. He sent me, 20 some odd PowerPoints and instructions that they tweak for patrol. If Los Angeles County can do it, then we can do it.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
So it comes down to teaching. Cops don't get any basic. They don't get basic tactical training in the academy. They get what I call they get a familiarization.
A checkbox training.
Yeah, checkbox training. Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's it. They check the box, and that's it. Right. And this is part of our problem is people think we're highly trained in all these, whether it's tactics entering a building or defensive tactics. I was just looking and listening to one of the Gracies. He was on a podcast, and he's trying to bring this Gracie survival stuff, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, into policing. And he was talking about how he's done a lot of it already in places around the country. including Marietta, Georgia, where they went down there and they implemented their program where they actually, hey, the department's paying for their guys to go to jiu-jitsu every week, right? Every week. You know what his recommendation is for DT, Gracie? And I agree with him.
What?
1 hour a week, the cops should be doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu or some type of defensive tactics training.
110% with that. I agree.
Right?
What's funny is, again, talking about how things, this is the way it's always been done. Back early in my law enforcement career, I mean, I've been doing martial arts since I was 5 years old, right? So leading all the way up, I mean, military loved that I had the martial arts background because, it's all combatives and good stuff and discipline and all that. I get into policing and, I had a tournament coming up once where I was going to be fighting whatever. All of a sudden, command staff was like, oh, well, these aren't approved tactics under the, under the guidelines. And I'm like,
right.
What? So what, you're telling me that your tactics that you taught me, quote unquote, is what's going to get me to survive out on the streets?
Yours will work. Yours are going to work.
Yeah, exactly. So that's again adaptability, right, Fred? Adaptability,
right.
Where you need that kind of training,
right? I mean,
you need it. They're perishable, man.
Oh yeah.
If we're not doing this stuff on a regular, what did Bruce Lee? Did Bruce Lee become Bruce Lee because he went to a DT class at the academy for 80 hours and then trained 4 hours a year for the rest of his career?
Yeah,
you're totally right.
He trained on a regular basis. Hey, it is, and you know what's sad? It's not just DT. How about our gun training? How about our guys with our pistols?
Oh my God!
Right?
It's
that's a problem too.
Yeah.
See what I get passionate about this because I'm tired of the dirty little secret. The dirty little secret is 90% more than 90% of us police are not highly trained.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I agree, Freddie.
You know what? I'm going to say it on your podcast.
Say it, buddy.
We're barely trained. We're barely trained.
I 100%.
And if we're going to hold street cops to a high level, a high standard for their decision making, then we better be damn well training them to a high level of professionalism.
Absolutely, bro.
And you can't do it with once a year, right? With
4 hours,
with having 4 hours and having every excuse in the world why we can't. And I want to leave you with this because I know we're getting to the end.
Talk to me.
And stop telling me if you want to condition your OODA loop in all the realms, in all the dimensions, physical, moral, mental, right? Then stop telling me you can't learn. Not every training class you have to go to a place, right?
Yeah.
I tell the sergeants this while I'm here. You can teach your guys day in and day out on this shift.
Right in the guard room.
Right in the guard room. Roll call.
Yep.
Or on a call. Like when you was clearing that room and you got done, you should have had these guys straight out talking to them. Hey, boom.
It doesn't have to be formal.
No, it doesn't have to be formal. It could be informal.
Right.
Matter of fact, we should be taking advantage of every informal opportunity we got to teach.
Absolutely.
Especially if we're leaders doing it, we should be making sure our guys are learning. And you know what? There's plenty of time to do it. I'm tired of hearing the excuse about no time.
There's 100% plenty of time.
I can get, you got time to do it. It doesn't take a long time to sit somebody down and go, hey, here's a room, here's what we could have done. Now show me this quick, right here in this room. How would you do it? It takes you 10 minutes to do that with guys.
100%
right. Now, I'm not saying 10 minutes is enough. All I'm saying is it gets them conditioned. Use after action reviews. Use decision-making exercises, right? Use videos that pop up like you guys are showing with some of these things. They show the guys and talk about what some of the ramifications and how will we handle it. What if this and what if that?
One of the best supervisors that I ever had, Freddie, would make you do an after-action report, and it would never go anywhere. And the reason why he would make you do that was to just put your actions down on paper for yourself.
Yeah.
It was like a way to self-assess.
Yeah.
How much power is in that?
Huge.
How much power is in that to learn?
Taught me a lot.
If a police organization, if there's any organization out there that should be a learning organization, it's policing. It should be constant, right? Because it's rapidly evolving, like we talked about. We can't be chasing our tails while the horses are out of the barn, right? Trying to figure out what's going on. We need to make sure we're agile and we're adapting at a quick pace, right, to get ahead of the curve in the OODA loop. We need to be the ones with the fluid loop, looking and anticipating the problem instead of sitting back going like this.
Yeah,
it'll blow over. Hey, it'll
Let's work
blow
the
over.
issues.
No, this ain't blowing over. Right? We need to make sure our guys are trained and developed.
Well,
all right. And I know every good cop, every good leader out there recognizes this. Now we need to start speaking it. Right?
You're
There's been too much silence. Too much silence over the last year, in my view. We need to speak up, and we need to have good leaders speaking their way. We know what's right. We know how to do this job, but we just need to step outside our comfort zones and explain it and ask for what we need. Stop telling people we're highly trained when we're not. Stop telling people we need more training. If we're going to be developed to be able to handle the things we got to do, we got to shoot more than once or twice a year, and we got to and not just qualify. When we go up and kick and punch at a target like it's a real
do some skill
like on
building,
a static line.
Yeah,
right. Do some building searches. Do some simulation.
Right.
Decision making exercises. There's ways of doing it, and it can be done. I've done it. I've done it on my job, on my department. We did tactical decision games, after action reviews, formal and informal. Right. Simulations.
Yep.
We need to be transparent about what the profession entails to make good cops. Then when you see training like this poor situation that happened, was down in Missouri or wherever that, or Minnesota again,
Ohio,
with a woman,
or Minnesota,
where the woman went to tase him, but had her gun and shot the kid.
You wouldn't have had that issue,
right? I mean, how am I supposed to be? And I'm going to speak from what my experience. But how am I supposed to be good with a tase
if I've never been trained on
it? If I shot 3 rounds out of it, drawn it and fired 3, because hey, it's too expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Those cartridges are expensive. Not good enough.
Oh my God. Well, Fred, listen, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. As always, we've been honored to have you on here. Honored to listen to you. Honored that thousands of our listeners are hearing you. You know,
absolutely.
So the one thing we're going to say is thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to Havoc Journal, Gym Junkies, Vector Shields, Wellness for Warriors, Live Boston 617, Eagle Eye Firearms MA, ODKit.com, and GunTrack.app. Guys, we love you. Stay safe.
Stay sapient.
Yeah, and love it.